It's a new year, which means everybody's feeling motivated to learn a new language. If you're like me though, it's real easy to start learning a language, but not so easy to stick to it. My name is Jamie, I'm a language coach. Let's talk about how to actually stick to your language learning this year. The first thing I would recommend you do if you want to stick to your language learning this year is to adjust your expectations. Thanks to a lot of voices on the internet, in our personal lives, what have you, it's really easy to have the wrong expectations about what it's like to learn a language and the tools that you need to stick to it long term. For example, something as simple as saying, I want to learn a language this year. It sounds great in theory, but in reality, it can really hurt you in the long term. Instead, try saying, I want to enjoy the language this year. This small change can really shift how much pressure you're putting on yourself from needing to be productive and efficient all the time and just enjoying the language and learning it passively, which trust me, that will really come in handy. Another example is something that I used to say every year, which is I'm gonna study this language every single day this year. Over the years, I have learned that this is a really great way to get myself overwhelmed, stressed out, and just burnt out. So instead, I like to say, I will consistently return to my language learning. This helps to adjust the intention so it's a little bit more realistic. So if you're having a hard week and you really just cannot do any language learning that week, you don't have to punish yourself. As long as you come back to it at some point, you're fine. Another example is thinking that you're going to learn the entire language this year. This sounds fine at first, but once you get going, you'll start to realize just how much language there is, which again leads to a lot of overwhelm. And the fact of the matter is you don't need most of the language in order to accomplish your goals. Instead, I would recommend saying something like, I will learn these things that I need to learn in order to accomplish my goals. So for example, if you just want to have conversations, something as simple as I want to learn some base vocabulary and get comfortable talking. Reframes like that will help prevent a lot of overwhelm and help you stay a lot more consistent in your language learning this year. The next thing I would suggest you do if you want to stick to your language learning this year is to be prepared. Now, if you want to stick to this thing long term, you have to accept the fact that there is no such thing as new year, new me. Life isn't going to be magically easier just because the numbers on the date changed. So instead of expecting things to go hunky-dory all year and for it to be easy for you to stick to this motivation, prepare for the inevitable. Things like exam weeks, things like busy seasons at work, things like chronic illness. I know it's really exciting to start a new year and have a new fresh start, but that doesn't mean you're not going to have any more problems ever. There's a couple of ways that you can do this. For example, think about how much time you actually have to spend on your language learning, and don't feel bad if it's less than you would like to spend. I've definitely been in the position where I swore I was going to spend an hour speaking every other day, and it didn't work. What I wish I had done at that point was to pull it back and commit to like 10 minutes every other day. It might not seem good enough in the short term, but when I can stick to that in the long term, it's much easier and I end up spending a lot more time on my language learning as opposed to committing to an hour and then giving up, burning out, and feeling really bad about it. It's exciting to make really big, lofty goals, but once that New Year's motivation wears off, you're gonna feel really guilty when you can't stick to that hour a day. And in most cases, that just causes you to give up. Another thing that you can do is plan resources for your days depending on how much energy you have. So yes, there will be days when you can sit down and really focus hard and commit a lot of time to your language studies, but what about those off days or those busy seasons? Having a committed language tutor every week sounds great until you have a couple of weeks that are not so great and you lose that energy. Instead of losing all that motivation and feeling really guilty because of things outside of your control, you can prepare by having resources and strategies that are a lot less time intensive, a lot less energy intensive, because in reality, you don't have to spend a lot of time and energy in one go to learn a language. My next recommendation for you to stick to your language learning long term this year is to start small. Now, I mentioned this a couple times already, but I really want to drive home how important this is if you want to stick to your language learning. I know it's really excited in a new year to put all of your effort and energy into this goal that you genuinely really want to accomplish. But remember that language learning is a marathon, not a sprint. It's not about putting your head down for 2 weeks and learning the language. It's about keeping it a part of your day-to-day life, and 6 months down the road, a year down the road, you'll be able to do things that you never thought possible before. It can be really hard to stick it out for that 6 months to a year, but once you learn how to do that, you can do anything. Plus, putting all that pressure on yourself to learn a language as quickly as possible, it's not going to help you. For one, when you put so much pressure on yourself to learn a language efficiently, perfectly, really, really quickly, you'll spend all of your time thinking about whether or not you're learning quickly enough or efficiently enough. More time worrying about that and less time actually learning the language and enjoying it. I've definitely been in the position where I've spent weeks and months researching different language learning apps and courses, but none of that time actually learning the language. Because it's easy to forget that languages are subjective, they're nuanced. Not only that, but everybody's brains, everybody's lives are different. I know it's really exciting to type in all the data into calculators online to see how long it'll take you to get fluent in a foreign language, but it's impossible to come up with an exact number, an exact length of commitment. It depends on so many factors that nobody can predict. Not even you. Instead of trying to control every little aspect of your life and your language learning, it'll be much easier and much more healthy to keep your commitment small and doable. And on those days, weeks, months, whatever it is that you have more time, you have more energy, you can absolutely expand on that. But don't set your sights too high because you're gonna fail yourself every time. The next thing to keep in mind if you wanna stick to your language learning this year is to be kind to yourself. So many language learners look at things that they cannot control and assume that they are lazy, they're procrastinating, they are too dumb, they're too busy, or any number of things are getting in the way of their language learning. But in reality, there are just things outside of our control. And when these things happen in life and we assume that it's our fault that we can't stick to our language learning regardless of what's happening in our lives, we feel bad about ourselves. And then when we blame ourselves for not being able to stick to language learning like we wanted to, we fall into this cycle of trying to learn a language, not doing as well as we expected to, assuming that it's something that's wrong with us, giving up, and feeling guilty. And then next year comes around and we do the same thing over and over again. Instead, when life happens, feel free to take a pause and do it without judgment. When life happens and it's outside of your control, you just have to respond to it. Allow yourself to respond to it without feeling bad that you can't commit 100% wholeheartedly to your language learning goals. If you really want to stick to your language learning this year, you have to remember that that language isn't going anywhere. It is not the most important part of your life. And so it's totally okay, reasonable. I give you full permission to put your language learning away for as long as you need to in order to take care of what else is going on in your life. And again, with no judgment, because you don't have to give up on your language learning every single time you fall out of that habit. Instead, give yourself a little bit of grace and trust that you'll be able to come back to it when you have the space for it. And one of the most important things that you need to do if you want to stick to your language learning this year is to enjoy the journey. You may have one language app in mind. You might have a course that you spent a lot of money on. You might have promised yourself and committed to yourself that you were going to use this resource or this strategy to learn your target language this year. These are all totally fine and reasonable, but after a while you find that it's really not serving you. It's okay to let it go and do something else that's more enjoyable. Your language learning journey is your own, so you don't need to hold yourself to standards that you set for yourself just because you feel bad about letting go of those standards. You set the rules for your own language learning. Make sure that those rules serve you. And again, do it without judgment, because if you're stubborn like me and you hold on to rules that aren't actually serving you, you're not going to be able to stick to your language learning this year. You're going to burn out, get bored, and feel bad about yourself. And I know this from my personal experience and my personal mistakes, which I shared in this video about my language learning mistakes in past years. So if you enjoy this video, make sure you check out that video next because it's gonna really help you to learn from my mistakes. So if you're ready to really stick to your language learning this year, I will see you in that video.